I'm Buddy Kofoid.
I'm Zeb Wise, and this is The Skinny.
From the Fatheads Eyewear Studios in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny, brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, General Tire, and Dream Giveaway. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Toyota. Once again, welcome back to The Skinny. Ken Stout here, and the track dude sitting alongside Michael Young. Thanks for sitting in there, Michael. And we have one of the young guns inside of the sport, courtesy of the Toyota Development Driving Program. His name is Michael Kofoid. They call him Buddy. That's going to be the first question we ask him, where that came about. But to follow up on what he has already accomplished, first of all, he's driving for one of the best teams in the business in Keith Kunz Motorsports, the 2020 USAC Rookie of the Year in the National Midget Series. Also qualified for the A-Main in his rookie season in 2020 at the Chili Bowl and finished 7th. What an accomplishment that is, to say the least. Has finished 3rd and has finished 2nd in the prelim nights there at the Chili Bowl. Buddy, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. Should be fun.
So where did the name come from? Michael Kofoid, and am I saying the name right, first of all?
Yeah,
Kofoid,
no,
right?
That's it.
So who decided, by the way, Dad's sitting over in the corner, so...
that might be your answer right there, where that came from.
The pronunciation to have the emphasis on co instead of Kofoid, it's Kofoid.
Yeah. No, it's spelled how it sounds, and you'd be surprised on how many people get it wrong or how many people add letters in that have no business being there. But
how many track announcers over your time in driving have just butchered the name?
Quite a bit.
The worst was what? The worst pronunciation ever was what?
Well, I've heard Kofoid, so somehow an A found its way in there. And then Kofold or Koford. I don't know. Over the past few years, it's gone a lot better now.
Any variations of it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And I'm guilty of the Kofoid, by the way. I mean, I think when you're doing the Chili Bowl, I was in the booth at Chili Bowl, and I think it's just easy to rattle off Kofoid instead of going Kofoid. So
the only time I've ever heard Kofoid was actually at the Wild Wing Shootout in Arizona. Was the only time I heard it. But other than that, it's been pretty good the past couple years.
Well, Ken did Kofoid, so you've got 2 now. So there you have it.
I didn't hear that one.
But it was more official when I did. It was on the Chili Bowl.
Sure. Where did the Buddy come from? How did Buddy become the nickname for you?
So it did come from my dad.
I figured.
I think I was only a couple years old, and he referred to me as his little buddy. And then it turned into Buddy, and then it transpired into racing, where everyone just called me Buddy. And except in school, it was always Michael. But pretty much everyone I know calls me Buddy, and I've never heard them refer to me as Michael. So,
probably a good thing at the racetrack because your father's name is Michael, correct?
Yeah, yep.
So probably a good way to distinguish between the two. Everybody's saying Michael, and they're mad at Michael, and Dad's turning around like, what? I didn't do anything to anybody.
Or I'll hear Michael, and sometimes I'll wonder if they're even talking to me. But, yeah,
and then you get into the whole Kofoid Jr. thing, and then they said that it's Kofoid Jr. and Ken would have
I'm not even a junior either.
You're not a junior?
No.
Not the same. What's your middle name?
Powers, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
And how did that come about?
So, I think, how did it go? So my dad's stepdad, Gary Kofoid, adopted my dad. And his last name is Kofoid, obviously. And my real dad's last name is Powers. So when I was born, they made it my middle name, but it's technically not 2 last names. It really is just my middle name. So my dad's name is Mike Powers, and my step grandpa Gary Kofoid his last name's Kofoid. So they made that my dad's last name, and now it's obviously all of ours under my dad. So
that's awesome.
3 mics.
Yeah.
No way getting around that one.
Yeah, no different middle names, all of them from what I understand. So
that's super cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always wonder about some of those things,
It's interesting.
Where's it come about? Yeah, and your story actually is pretty interesting with the stepdads and the dads involved.
Yeah, and really, from what I understand, when Gary's ancestors came from Denmark, that's where the name comes from, is Denmark. And it was Kofed, Kofoed, And from what I remember, the spelling got changed, so they made it Kofoid on accident. So that's why there's very few Kofoids. I've never met another Kofoid.
So when the family came over, someone misspelled it, and then you're stuck with it.
Yeah, the people that, I guess, I don't know if it's when you come into the country, whoever
those-
takes your name down.
Those Ellis Island people, they were horrible.
Yeah.
They did the same thing. My wife's maiden name is Houlihan, and they did the same thing. They changed the spelling there too whenever they came over from Ireland. So it's not the first time I've heard of that
Yeah,
happening.
it's unique.
So you got an interesting piece on your right wrist there. What's going on with the right wrist?
So July 24th, actually, on my dad's birthday too. I was running a pavement late model in Elko, Minnesota. And long story short, passed the guy. He got in the back of me and didn't get off me and drove me to the fence into one and left-sided. And everything, like transmission, motor, and everything, broke out of the car and shifted over to the left. And the shifter crushed the sheet metal next to my seat, and it was close to the wheel of my seat. So they think my hand bounced off the shifter and fractured my navicular bone. So I've had it on for a little over 2 weeks now. So hopefully I can get it off in the next few.
And
And your foot as well, correct?
Yeah. All it did, but it chipped a bone off the top of my foot. And they said there's nothing you can do about it. It doesn't hurt right now, really. I'd say it's probably 80-90% already. But, it didn't need a cast or anything like that. It just said it would just heal.
Which foot was it?
My left one.
Well, you don't need that one anyhow, so.
No, not too much. I mean, pavement, you do need quite a bit. But on the dirt stuff, you can kind of get away with it. But the first time I got back in a car was about a week later, and I didn't have any pain really in my foot. It was just certain movements just kind of flares it up. But
Your left foot breaking in the midget, aren't you?
a little bit, yeah, a handful. Wing sprint cars definitely quite a bit.
Yeah, so I read where you said the wrist actually is too painful to drive the wing sprint car, but you were able to push through on the midget.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's painful for the sprint car. It's a different technique compared to the midget, where like you're a lot of left hand, and I float my right hand a lot in the midget. And at the time I thought I floated it a lot more until I got in. I was like, oh, I actually use my right hand more than I thought. But where a wing sprint car, you use your both hands pretty equally, I'd say. And especially, I was gonna run the nationals, and I thought it was a good idea to take it off. Unfortunately, but I got some advice from other drivers, and because I've never been there, and they say use right hand a lot, and I could, barely even. I can't use my wrist, and as you turn the wheel, you bend your wrist to compensate, so you don't have to chicken wing your arm. And so I was pretty much down a whole hand. So in the midget, I can kind of get away with it though.
So I heard that they actually molded the cast to the steering wheel, or the shape of the steering wheel.
Yeah. So I brought my wheel with me because I get my cast changed every 2 weeks actually, since they're letting me race with it to keep it clean, and since I'm probably going to be abusing it a little bit. But they held the wheel. I held the wheel, and they molded it just around here, and kept my palm open enough to where I could get my hand on it and hook my thumb on it, and somewhat keep it rested on it, or give it a little feedback, or use it a little bit if I need to.
Go ahead.
I saw a video that was, I thought, hilarious and quite ingenious on your part, where you took a glove and cut up a glove and some socks, and you made a whole new type of glove.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So K1 helped out a lot with that. We went to their store in North Carolina and said, well, we need to mess with a couple different size gloves, since I'm a medium and the cast is a lot thicker. And it was like, so we just cut up some gloves and picked which ones worked the best, and tried different things. And because usually the gloves go down to here, so we cut it like to here, just because it got so tight over the back of the thumb and into the wrist where I couldn't get it on. So we cut it and kept it kind of open up where it's cut down the sides, so it's almost gonna like pull it like a handle almost. And then with the flap and the rest of the cast exposed, we cut up a sock and just rolled it over it, and then it sets over the cuff of my suit, so it keeps everything kind of closed up, and it holds the back of the glove down.
And we call that contraption? I believe you said a gawk is what
gawk.
is what
But so, and then I thought of a better word to use after that, which they couldn't use. I said a Glock.
well,
But
I believe that's a weapon.
right. And,
Yeah.
and that's and with and with that cast it could be, but that's what I was thinking. I'm like, man, he's so good that in his mind, in that one moment, he said, well, I can't say Glock, so I'll call it a gawk. And
I said it after that, and like, oh, we can't use that. It's like, all right, that's fair enough.
They've already trademarked that one, so
Yeah.
you can't use that one. Hey, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be right back in just a few moments with more action from Buddy Kofoid. Kofoid, see?
This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by General Tire. It's more than just a slogan. Anywhere is possible with General Tire. General Tire's Grabber X3 Mud Terrain tire offers aggressive styling and is engineered for durability with innovative performance features that are ready to carry you through extreme mud, dirt, and rock-covered terrain. For extreme traction that's ready for anything and rugged styling to match, look no further than the Grabber X3. Make your anywhere possible by visiting GeneralTire.com today.
Once again, welcome back to the Skinny. We have one of the young guns in the USAC battle for the national midget points. His name is Buddy Kofoid. His actual name is Michael, but everybody refers to him as Buddy. And we should also tell you that while we've had a little bit of time with him already, and yes, he does have a broken wrist and a hurt foot, he is still leading in the points in that USAC national midget chase. About 20 races or so left to go inside of the season, so there's a lot to be accomplished yet.
Yeah, there's still quite a bit. I think we just passed the halfway point. We've done about 22 races, maybe. We probably have about 18 to 20 left. So, yeah, it's a little tough, obviously, with my cast situation, but been able to adapt a little bit. And over PA Midget Week, I kind of figured out some ways to help myself and change some stuff in the car to make it easier for me, at least, and until I can get it off. But yeah, we had a kind of one bad night for sure, and that kind of tightened it back up. The last couple races, we found some speed and was able to extend it a little bit.
So the obvious choice is, when is it coming off? I'm sorry, the obvious question is, when is it coming off?
I would say hopefully the first week of September, second week would be my hope. First week, roughly.
So how old are you?
19.
So you're 19. The NASCAR series was just in Indianapolis for the big race weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And there's also an event going on at the Speedway called the BC 39 on the dirt track there. Mm-hmm. Now, at the age of 19, you became a coach for some pretty familiar names in the racing world. Tell us about that story.
Yeah, so one of the really cool things is for me being involved with Toyota is getting to work with or like hang out with some of the the bigger drivers in NASCAR, NHRA, and stuff like that. And we had this day called Toyota Day this past Wednesday, where we had they had about 10 drivers across Toyota, from Cup to Xfinity to trucks to funny cars and Top Fuel, and then even Formula Drift, where they came in and Keith brought about 6 midgets, and they all got to take turns driving them. So I got to coach Ty Gibbs, he was the only one that drove my car. As far as him and I were the only one that were the same size, really. So I only had one guy in my car, so I got to work with Ty a lot and hang out with him. And then I got to talk to Martin Truex a lot, and then Daniel Hemrick quite a bit. And so it's cool to hang out with those guys and watch their progression, actually, from when they first got into the last time. So, yeah, it was a pretty cool experience, and just a different role for me that I've never really got to experience before. So
is it hard not to be a fan in that situation, that like you're the professional in a midget,
yeah,
and you're coaching these guys, but at the same time, looking up to them ever so slightly and like, boy, I
Yeah.
want to do what they do someday?
Yeah, no, I would agree. Ty was really cool, but I thought Martin was really cool to hang out with and to just like see his reaction to the midgets like I told Ty, I said this will probably be one of the coolest experiences you've gotten to do, and then like he got to do clubhouse. He's like, well, yeah, that's pretty cool. So none of those guys have really done dirt. So to go from an Xfinity car, or ARCA car, Cup car, whatever, to a small wheelbase dirt midget, I would think would be quite a bit of a big change for them and probably a lot of fun. So it was cool. It was also hard not to, I wanted to drive too, but it was just as cool watching them. And like I said, like watching their progression was just like huge. Like Martin from the beginning of the day to the end was like a huge swing, and he looked pretty good. And Antron Brown was really good. And it was a timed like a competition type thing. So I was working with Ty a lot, and actually Jarrett, my crew chief, like we were making changes every time we went out, like treating it as kind of a big deal. Like we want to win this thing, and didn't quite do that, but it was quite a lot of fun.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, Martin, you would understand. I could see him adapting and putting it together, a little quicker than, say, an Antron Brown. I mean, here's a guy that goes straight for a living, hops inside of this thing, and he was doing a good job, huh?
Yeah, no, it's like Antron, his first one was not that great.
A little sketchy?
Yeah, but his last round, he looked good, and was on the throttle and entered the corner good, and kept it rotated, and didn't let off and get it tight. So he looked good, and really they all progressed pretty well, I think. But that Ryan Turk from Formula Drift, like he was, his first one to his last one is really, really cool too. And it's funny watching him because those drift guys, they got the handbrake, I would assume, and they're always moving their hands around. So he's trying to enter the corner with throttle, and then you can hear him push the brakes, so it bogs it down instead of like getting on it, getting off, and getting the car set. And then you could see him, he's like moving his hands around like he's got a wheel and he's trying to turn it, which the Formula Drift cars, they their wheel probably turns a lot more than ours is just, probably 90 degrees each way. And he's throwing it in, then he's dropping a hand like he's trying to cut it around, but it was crazy. And he was pretty fast too towards the end. But it was like watching the inside, like we were on the infield, so watching him get in the corner, watching him like drop his hand and then like grab it again, is like, the wheels don't turn that much. But it's funny. It's cool.
It is pretty cool, the different disciplines, to see what those habits that those guys are going to bring in, and then be in something completely different. And of course, the midget has such a high level of respect, from history, watching the best in the business come through that, and then seeing somebody do what you're doing, and then have those guys get in it from their discipline. I think it's a really cool moment, and the fact that they chose you to come out there and work with those guys is super cool.
Yeah, no, it was a blast, and like I said, that's one of the many cool things that I get to do as far as being involved with Toyota and meeting those guys and then getting to do those cool little events.
So the BC39 coming up, you're part of that, racing with a plethora of names in motorsports, from Chase Elliott, Connor Daly, all the way down to some of the very, very best. Zeb Wise, who won the last one in 2019. Big event for you coming up. Looking forward to it, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I would say this is probably one of our biggest midget races that we get to run for this year, as far as prestige and what it means, and then even the money. And also, this will be my first BC39 as well. I haven't been in midget racing that long, and my first year was last year, so we didn't get to run it. So, that in itself will be exciting, just to race at a new place for the first time.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Brian Clausen, one of the all-time greats in midget sprints and Silver Crown cars. Was he an idol of yours growing up?
Yeah, I'd say, him coming from California and moving to Indiana is kind of the similar path that I've taken so far. Like you said, he was probably one of the best all-around versatile drivers, I would say, of his time. Kyle is another example, obviously, and Tyler Courtney does a really good job at it too. But Brian was, he'd win in whatever he got in. So, yeah, I would say definitely.
So how does that relationship begin with Keith Coons Motorsports? Does Dad pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Keith, is there an opportunity? Can my son drive with you?" Or is that a Toyota-inspired move?
That was a Toyota-inspired move. I had been racing sprint cars for a handful of years in California and always wanted to go out to the Midwest. And I talked to Carson Macedo in 2018 and asked if there was anyone I could get a hold of to get out there to Ohio at the time. And he gave me a couple names, and one of them was Mike Linder, who at the time ran Ed Neumeister's program. And I called him and then did a couple races in 2018. They hired me full-time in 2019. So I drove sprint cars in the Midwest full-time. And then about August, I think it was, I got a text on Twitter from Jack Irving, who manages the Toyota driver development program. And he just kind of said, hey, like, you know, it's Jack Irving, and you know, explain what he did. And he said, call me Monday. I was like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to call you Monday.
That's a good guy to get a text message
yeah.
from.
And, you know, in a way, I've never really heard of that happening either. And that's like nothing. I don't come from money to where I could just pick up the phone. Like, I'm in it just based off of them hiring me. Otherwise, you know, at the time, I had no intentions of getting in a midget. I was in the process of looking for another ride to go out probably more of a national level in sprint cars. Like, I had no idea I'd be running midgets and be with Toyota. And so then, yeah, I did a handful of races at the end of 2019 when the first year I moved to Ohio and ran sprint cars. And I actually won my first race for Keith in the midget. And then I ran second and third my next two races. And then did a couple of USAC races out west and ran 6th at the Turkey Night. So it was a pretty good first few races, I guess I would say. And you know, at the time, I'd really never ran a midget before that, so I had no idea quite what I was doing yet. And then, you know, my next race was Chili Bowl, and ran 3rd in my prelim, and then locked in the show and went like 12th to 7th, and was pretty good then. And you know, all last year ran USAC full time and Power Eye when USAC wasn't racing, and it's same schedule this year. So yeah, no, it's been a blast run for KKM, and getting to represent Mobile One in their house car and getting to do it with Toyota too has been pretty cool.
We wish you the best of luck, my friend. Obviously, you're a tough guy. You don't keep scrapping with a broken wrist if you're not. Best of luck chasing this championship as well. You're sitting in a great position, and certainly proven to be a worthy candidate of what Jack Irving thinks you're capable of.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully be talking to you guys pretty soon, hopefully as a champion.
Keep your eyes on him, ladies and gentlemen. He's a badass. Zeb Wise is making his way to the studio. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Rhino Classifieds. Tired of all those ads and random stuff that shows up when you're looking to buy or sell your car parts? Rhino Classifieds was created just for you. Welcome to a streamlined buying and selling app created by racers for racers and race fans. Modified cars, classic cars, race cars, that special big block you need, the trailer to move your baby around the country in. We got you at rhino.co. Once again, welcome back to The Skinny. We love this show because we're able to bring a lot of the superstars, but some of the young and upcoming talent as well. Of course, we just finished up with Buddy Kofoid. I'd like to welcome back to the show Rico. You've been super busy, my friend. Great to have you back at the desk.
Great to be back. I thought Michael was trying to take my job, and apparently I'm back on, so this is good.
Well, I saw you carry him out by the nape of his neck. I think you're safe for a little bit. So
That's it.
Good stuff. And joining us now is one of those young guns. Matter of fact, filled in for Buddy Kofoid just a week or so ago. Let's welcome him to the desk here. Zeb Wise, come on in, bud. Great to have you with us. Zeb, by the way, doing great in the All-Stars, 5th in the points, does have a win The 2020 All-Star Rookie of the Year finished third in the points, had a win there as well with 3 top fives, and probably your biggest win, correct me if I'm wrong, the 2019 BC 39. Pretty special moment, man.
Yeah, that was a special day for me and everyone at Clausen Marshall Racing. That race meant a lot to them for obvious reasons, and that was a very special day. We knew leading into it that we were in a pretty good spot after Wednesday coming out of the heats, and I just remember sitting down and just like, man, how do I not screw this up? You know, I'm in a good spot. Let's make the most of it. And started 5th in the feature, and everything just kind of fell right in line. Got to the lead a little early. I was a little worried, honestly, that I got to the lead that early, and was a little scared that we were going to be too good too early. But everything played in our favor, and somehow didn't wreck with Kyle and ended up winning.
Yeah, a great battle with Kyle, too. Matter of fact, as I recall, I think Kyle might have fed you a right rear that ended up cutting his own right rear, and boom, he was gone.
Yeah, I just remember the 2 or 3 laps before that, well, there was a caution, and then like the 2 or 3 laps before that caution, me and Kyle were just getting started on a battle, and then caution came out, and we had that restart, and anytime you have Kyle breathing down your neck, you're nervous, and I remember going down into turn 1, and I didn't see him, and I thought I was safe, and then I went into turn 3, and here he came, and then it was a long slider, and I did everything I could to stay off of him. At first, I was like going to check up to let him go by, and then I was like, "Oh, it's too late. I got to try to go around it." And then, he clipped me in the left rear. And honestly, I have no idea how my car didn't break, because I was 4 wheels up on the wall, and I think it ended up bending my drag link, and the car was a handful from that point on, but hung on.
And it's worth mentioning, this is a couple of years ago. He's 18 now, so 16 years old, battling with arguably, I think anybody would call him the best in the business as it stands here today, Kyle Larson.
Yeah, and it's funny, like we look at that race, but I think one that stands out to me is Action Track, and that was that year as well, 2019. Me and Kyle threw bombs at each other like the last 4 or 5 laps, and it was probably some of the most fun I've ever had in a midget. But yeah, me and Kyle seem to, every time we get around each other, not so much in the sprint car because he pretty much seems to just drive away whenever you get around him, but in the midget stuff, we seem to battle pretty well.
Are those moments, they have to be confidence builders, but do you, in the moment, do you take a second or a portion of a second and say to yourself, man, I'm good enough to race with somebody at this level. Like, I've got this, man. I'm going to battle with this guy. I'm not going to just give it to him because it's Kyle Larson.
Yeah, I feel like you see that a lot too. Like those, when guys get in battles with him or Bell or guys like that caliber, they don't really back down, but they don't race them as hard as they would anyone else. And I've always been confused on that, because if anything, you should race them harder than anyone else. And that's kind of just how I've always treated racing Kyle and Christopher. You just can't let them go by, because they're good enough to get by you if they can. So I just always race them as hard as I would anyone else.
Amazing stuff. And, at the age of 16, we had Kyle on, I guess it was Chili Bowl a year or two
ago.
Yeah.
That's the year he had flipped violently down in Australia or New Zealand.
Yeah. Had blood.
I was there for that.
Yeah. Oh, were you really?
Yeah, I was in New Zealand the same time he did that. That was crazy.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, I just remember I was sitting in staging, and I'm ready to roll on the track at Western Springs, and I look to my left, and I see this car flying through the air, and I'm like, ooh, that was big, and I'm about to go on the track, so my crew guy comes down, and he's like, hey, just be careful off of 2, that cushion's pretty big, and I'm like, who was that just flipped? And they're like, that was Kyle, and I'm like, no, like, who was it? And they're like, that's Larson, and I'm like, oh boy, like, because you never expect Kyle to wreck.
Right, and it was pretty wild how it all went down.
It was spectacular.
Yeah.
And in your mind, immediately you're like, well, if Kyle can wreck.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, man, if Kyle's wrecking, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a crazy night. And then he ended up having to sit out a few nights, which gave us a chance to run up front. So, yeah, just glad he was okay after that. I think the eye was the least of his worries.
It's funny, the psyche of a driver is, if it's some back marker, he just made a mistake. But as soon as you hear it's Kyle, it's like, oh shit,
yeah,
that's real.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Klepper talking about Clay.
Yeah.
You know, when they went out there and media day and immediately trashed the back
Yeah,
end of the
you don't
car,
have to flat-footed around there. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, out of the park. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So you're splitting your time between midgets, wing sprints, anything else you're doing?
Oh, every now and then I'll jump in a micro, but it's pretty far and few between. I don't really run them that much anymore. I like to go. I race obviously sprint cars full time on the All Star Tour, and then I just jump in midgets whenever I can. We actually took 3 Matt Wood racing midgets home from Chili Bowl this year, and store them in our barn right beside the sprint cars, and just kind of run them. This will be my first time running it outdoors, but I'd plan on running some in midget week, and the way the All Star schedule kind of panned out, we didn't get to, but. So yeah, this will be my first time outdoors, and none of the Matt Wood guys are here, so it's me and my dad and my brother-in-law, and see what we can do. My dad's been working on midgets for the last couple of years, so I think we'll be just fine.
That's awesome. Yeah. Speaking of midgets, have you ever considered running the Fort Wayne race?
So I have a lot of history at that race. To be honest with you, I ran quarter midgets there for years, and I
apologize. I should say in the midget race.
Yeah, no, yeah. I really do want to run the midget race there. I've always grown up, obviously going there running quarter midgets. I always went there and watched midgets and watched Tony dominate there. And my dad actually is like co-owner in a midget that races that, Derek Bishak, and he won it a couple years back. So. Yeah,
sounds like
cool
you better
event.
be talking to the car owner, right?
I need to get in there, huh? Yeah, I would love to.
It's a great event. I'm telling you, it's a lot like it reminds me of the speedrome. Like when everybody was like, "Why are you racing the speedrome?" Brian Clausen ran the speedrome a lot in the beginning, and I'm telling you, if you know how to get around that place, just like at Fort Wayne, if you know how to get around that place and stay off of somebody. You've got talent and it tracks anything bigger and up, so it'd be great to see you there. I mean, Larry Bowe's a good friend of ours as well, and that puts the show on, and so we'll be there. So
you get Tony to put another car together, I'll be there.
I'll be seeing him later. Maybe we'll come by your pit and have a word with him about it. So.
By the way, we need to congratulate you and let the fans that might not know who you are know some of your accomplishments as well. You mentioned the Chili Bowl. I know you've been there a couple of times in the midget. I don't know if you haven't made the A yet, right?
No, I have the worst luck in that building.
Yeah, I saw you pass a lot of cars.
Yeah, I'm good at passing cars there.
You can do that when you start in the E.
Yeah.
But you made the E to the D to the C. I mean, you passed a lot of cars, but man, you've been really good there at the shootout. 4 A mains in 2 separate years. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment. And you do own a driller. You won one of those A mains at the shootout.
Yeah, the shootout has been, honestly, I think I use all my luck out at the shootout instead of at the Chili Bowl. But yeah, the shootout's been so kind to me. I think I'm 13 for 14 on A main starts. Yeah, that race has always been so good to me, and I don't really know why. But yeah, just always been a race I really enjoyed. Hopefully. I don't know that I'll be there this year because hopefully I can go back to New Zealand and race some midget stuff out there. But yeah, hopefully
you'll be at the Chili Bowl.
Better. Yeah, I need Chili Bowl to go good for at least 1 year.
Nobody's traveling outside the country.
What's wrong with him? Hey, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be right back with more from the young gun, Zeb Wise. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Dream Giveaway. Dream Giveaway has been giving away high-end American muscle cars to raise money for charity since 2007. Dream Giveaway is known for giving away classic and new muscle and paying the federal taxes so the winners don't have to. For $25, you can jump in the game, and part of that goes to charity. You'll have a chance at winning some of the coolest cars on the planet. Check it out at dreamgiveaway.com. Once again, welcome back to the Skinny. Rico Elmore has joined us here on the back half of this show. It was great to have Buddy Kofoid on to kick things off here with Michael Young, the track dude. Now we have Zeb Wise sitting in his seat, who's actually filled in for Buddy. As you know, if you watched the beginning of this show, Buddy broke his wrist and hurt his foot, and in lieu of that, you got a chance to hop inside of the sprint car and fill in for him a little bit. We should also say that he's the youngest midget winner in the history of USAC, taking that honor away from Brian Clausen, of all people. So it's funny when you see some of the ties that have come together for you in your career already with the Clausen Marshall team.
Yeah. So that was in 2018 when I took that record away. Tim, we were standing in Victory Lane, and I'll never forget when they came on and said, Zeb Wise is now the youngest national winner in history. And me and Tim looked at each other and we're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Who was the last guy that had that? and
he didn't know. Tim didn't know?
He didn't know.
Wow.
And we had to ask, I think it was Spridge or Richie Murray or someone with USAC, and they said it was Brian. And Tim goes, there's not many people that I would want to break that record, but you're definitely up there on the list. And ironically, so now fast forward to 2021, and now that record is broken again by another Clausen Marshall driver. So yeah, Corey Day just broke my record just a month ago, I think it was. So yeah, it's crazy how, it shows what Tim can do with a young driver and his eye for young drivers as well, to be able to pick those guys they're just getting younger, it seems like. I remember when I raced midgets, I was the young guy and I was 15 and 16 years old, and now that's pretty common in midgets. So yeah, it's definitely taken a transition.
Old guy now that he's 18.
I know, and I was thinking when you were saying that, Brian was kind of the exception back in the day, you know what I mean, with how young he was, because you had, people like Tracy Hines, Levi Jones, and so on that were in the, in the mix at that point. And, I am truly amazed by the age of these drivers now. Okay, you included. I watched you. I of course, everybody's skeptical when you get in something new, right? I was like, man, how's he going to do in the wing sprint? In this big 410 and with these animals, because there are a lot of animals that are in the All-Stars. And, and so it was great to watch you transition over there. Again, amazing to watch Sunshine do the same thing with their program. So it's really cool to see that. And you've ran some shows with the Outlaws too, I think. What shows have you ran with them in the wing car?
Well, I just recently ran the Nationals, and then obviously Kings Royal, pretty much the big shows, and then just fill-in stuff. I ran Hobsot, and what else did I run? Port Royal a couple times, and yeah, just kind of little fill-in stuff. But yeah, I run with them every now and then.
Little fill-in stuff.
Little fill-in stuff. Well, so let's
Knoxville Nationals.
Let's elaborate on that Knoxville Nationals. That little stuff. That prelim night, qualified on the pole and was running fourth when, unfortunately, the diff broke on the car. So, yeah, just filling in. Just a little bit of stuff here.
Here and there. Hit a micro show, Knoxville National.
On the pole and prelim night in Knoxville, dude. What was that like?
Yeah, that was crazy. Obviously, I wasn't even going to be there. I wasn't even going to be there to watch. And I got the call Sunday night to go fill in for Buddy. And we, I went into that race with zero expectations, and I think they were the same way, because before that I only had probably 50 laps there in a 410, and we go there and honestly didn't qualify that great. Qualified 22nd. We knew I was going to start as fourth in the heat, and then I told myself if I can just get to second here, that'll probably put us in definitely lock us into the feature, get us in a decent spot. And I'll never forget, I went fourth to second heat race, and I'm sitting on the cooler, and I get a text from Brian Walker, the PR guy for the Outlaws, and he says, dude, you're not going to believe this. And I feel like it was like I've never felt nerves come to me that quick, because I knew exactly what he was going to say. And I ended up being on the pole that race, and with the caliber of guys that were behind me and my inexperience, I knew that I was going to be, in trouble, that I was going to be under attack for sure. But I knew if I could just maintain and get in a good spot that we would be just fine. And that's what I was doing. I had settled into fourth and just kind of was going to ride. And I knew Donnie hadn't passed me yet, so he was going to be there. But
As long as I'm in
Yeah.
front of Donnie, it's a good night.
yeah, but I was.
He's kind of good there.
He's all right, and
Yeah.
I was just cruising around in fourth, and yeah, we had a part break, but that was a blast of a week. I had so much fun, and then I ended up filling in for Paul too, so I filled in for 2 drivers on the same team in the same week.
Double duty. That's awesome. Talk to me real quickly before we run out of time here. You've got a big week coming up here. Matter of fact, you'll be on the track tonight, and then, of course, again tomorrow night as once again the BC 39 has come back around.
Yeah, we race. Obviously, tonight we'll do, I think, practice heats and then the Stoops Pursuit if I end up being in that. And then we race tomorrow, which is, I think, qualifiers and lower mains, and then obviously the A main. And then Friday, we're back on the All-Star Tour at I-96 in Michigan. And then we go to, I think, Waynesfield, Ohio on Saturday. So 4 days straight here. We'll be a busy guy.
Great stuff. And the only driver to win a pursuit race and the actual A main at the BC 39. And we were chatting about that pursuit race. It's kind of fun. It's a different format to put on a show for the fans here tonight.
Yeah, it is a very different format. Obviously, you're 25 laps with 5-lap segments, and then they take, if you go backwards, you get pushed to the infield. So it's definitely different, and I think it creates a little it definitely gets hectic at the beginning for sure because you cannot go backwards. And the year I won it, I think, obviously you're better off to start in the back because you can only go forward. And I started 17th and ended up winning it. So, yeah, it's a different format. I'm really interested to see how the track plays out tonight because I haven't been on it, obviously, in 2 years. So, yeah, interested to see what the track does. That's kind of my reasoning for picking a later heat. So that way maybe the track's a little wider and we can see what happens. But, yeah, hopefully just have a good heat race tonight and get in a good spot.
So, Rico, I'm not real sure what he was doing out there at 2 a.m., but apparently he's already viewed the track somewhere around 2 a.m. this morning.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
That sounds like us being out at the track, but we aren't usually viewing that track. So,
we could have been standing on it and not seen it at 2 a.m. But
I went around it when we were there for the Brickyard, and it's nice. They've got it groomed pretty well. Of course, it was just wide open. I was amazed with that there's still a little extra ag in it, and but that place, every year it seems like that track just keeps getting better and better, and definitely it'll be interesting. That's a great strategy to see if the track can widen out, get a little more data on it, and try to understand what the cars are doing out there. So
yeah, they've proved that when they get the track right, it produces great racing. It's perfect midget track, couldn't be any better size. So excited to be on it.
We certainly wish you the best of luck. We appreciate you taking the time to come in here and fill us in a little bit of the action behind the man of Zeb Wise and your young career. Boy, you've just done a fabulous job to get things going. Aspirations, do you have a goal? Would it be IndyCar? Would it be NASCAR? World of Outlaws, what's the final step?
The Outlaw Tour. That's just kind of ever since I was 5 years old. Actually, Rico, there was a guy that was interviewing all the kids in quarter midgets at the Rumble one year, and he took us all in a room and was interviewing all us, what do you want to do when you get older? What do you want to do? And every kid said, I want to go to NASCAR. I want to go to NASCAR. And I was the only one that said anything different. I said, I want to go to the Outlaw Tour. And he thought that was so crazy. I was only 6 or 7 years old and I wanted to go to the Outlaw Tour, and I've stuck to it, and I think I'm on the right track.
So where's all those other kids?
Probably not in NASCAR.
Probably not in NASCAR. That's about as good an answer
not
as
even
you
close.
can
He is racing Outlaws, and he's got the goals. So that's awesome, man. We're happy for you. It's a huge accomplishment what you've done. So.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, man, on that note, we'll wrap things up. You now know the skinny, or at least part of it, on the Young Gun Zeb Wise. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next time here on The Skinny. Thanks for being with us here on The Skinny. This episode has been brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, Dream Giveaway, and General Tire. For the latest in sunglasses, optical frames, accessories, and apparel, be sure to check out fatheads.com. That's Fatheads with a Z. Production facilities provided by Fatheads Eyewear Studios. All rights reserved.